Mike, and let's discuss the latest developments here in Ukraine and the Russian threat potential to the international community with retired Army Lieutenant Colonel and Intelligence Officer Chuck DeVore, along with former National Security Council Chief of Staff Fred Fleitz. Thanks for being here, gentlemen. And Chuck, let me get to you first. We talked a lot about how the Russian ground forces, at least appear to be stalled. They are pounding Ukraine, though, from the air. Where do you see this developing over the next 48 to 72 hours in terms of military action?
Well, I don't see the Russians generating much in the way of offensive capacity on the ground. The Ukrainians are also conducting multiple successful local counterattacks. I suspect that will continue. And the airstrike on Lviv, I think, is the most significant development. It is said that those missiles came from a submarine. So they're submarine-launched cruise missiles. Those are dual capable. In other words, they can have both high explosive and nuclear warheads. So by sending those missiles to Lviv, Vladimir Putin may be reminding NATO that he has nuclear weapons and the ability to deliver them.
Yeah, Fred, picking up on that, we talk a lot about the potential nuclear threat, the potential threat from a chemical weapon strike. Do you genuinely believe that President Putin, backed into a corner, would go that far?
I think if he was backed into a corner, he might go that far. But right now, I don't think he's seriously considering it. And I believe statements we're hearing by the Biden administration about chemical weapons are really overblown. But I do believe that Putin will use the prospect of nuclear war to keep us out of this conflict, to keep NATO from intervening. But I mean, there's some talk that maybe Putin would use chemical weapons against cities. I don't think there's a very low chance he would do that because, I mean, talk about being a pariah. This would cost him any possibility of a negotiated settlement. I also think it would cost him whatever support he has from China.
And Chuck, let me come back to you on military supplies from NATO countries, including the United States. We're getting a lot in. Obviously, President Zelensky once more. Russians now saying that they will target those convoys. They hit a weapons convoy that includes weapons, say, from the United States or from Germany or from the UK. Where does that take us? Does that mean NATO has to act?
Well, it depends on where the strike takes place. If it takes place on a NATO nation, then most likely, yes. If it takes place over the border in Ukraine, then definitely not. Ukraine's a large place, and the border with both Poland and with Romania is fairly long and extensive. There are plenty of highways and railways and secondary roads. And in addition, the Russians are having great difficulty with their targeting chain. They are not able to get actionable intelligence and feed them into their weapon systems rapidly. You're generally seeing strikes on fixed locations. Hitting a moving convoy would be very difficult at that distance.
Fred, I want to get to you a little bit on President Putin's state of mind. We had those really disturbing comments earlier this week about cleansing Russian society, about those who oppose him being scum and traitors. As you sit on something like the National Security Council, are people looking at him thinking this is a guy who has lost the plot?
Yeah, this seems to be moving in the wrong direction. This comment about self-cleansing society of traitors and other crazy comments he made, this looks like someone who may be thinking about a major escalation because I think he's being backed into a corner. And as I said earlier, I think it is so essential that we have to have some type of diplomatic off-ramp here. And that's going to be hard for the Ukrainians because they may have to offer something. But look, this is a megalomaniac with the largest nuclear arsenal on Earth. We should not be backing him into a corner. And I fault President Biden for calling him a war criminal. You and I can do that, but the President of the United States needs to be able to negotiate with the President of Russia.
Yeah, Chuck, can you build an off-ramp for somebody you have already called a war criminal?
It does make it more difficult, and it certainly increases the stakes on both sides. One of the things I'm concerned about, though, is that the Russians may agree to a temporary peace, an armistice, and wait until the ground in Ukraine begins to firm up around the end of May or the beginning of June. Right now, we're in the middle of what's called Rasputitsa, the mud season, and it makes it very, very difficult for the Russians to have cross-country mobility for their tanks and for their resupply columns.
Yeah, Chuck DeVore, Fred Fleitz, great to get your insights, gentlemen. As always, thank you so much for being with us. And our special coverage of the war continues live from Ukraine next.